Your life should not look the same after your encounter with God. If you have experienced the loving presence of God who has taken your sins away and erased them and really brought you from death to life, you should look different and things should be different. Because this love is so immense. Hello, Christian. How are you? Your life should look different in a way of thankfulness. It's very normal to, default to having the experience of God's presence in your life. And I have experienced this several times over, and it's really a practice to come back to thankfulness, to come back to gratitude, to come back to shining your light on behalf of God, right? But you should be thankful for what God has done in your life and what Jesus has done in your life. So you might abuse the word sometimes and say, well, I can still live like the world because Jesus still loves me and his grace will still cover me. But no, you got to live out of gratitude, live out of love, live out of service, out of honor, out of reverence. Because, of course, there's a process after you give your life to God, after you give your life to Jesus, because you realize that you're not going to live for eternity. This vessel is not going to live for eternity. And listen, giving your life to God and giving your life to Jesus is not necessarily going to look the same for you as it does for someone else. Because God has a specific calling for you, has a specific calling for how he wants you to shine his love around you, right? It is going to be specific to you. And so giving your life to God does not mean necessarily that you're going to, go into church and become a pastor or a priest or whatever. It means that whatever you do, your whatever situation you're put in, or whatever it is that you have as gifts in this world, you acknowledge them and you capitalize on them and you begin to express light and love through what it is that you do with full, undivided presence. That is the aim. That is the aim. So it shouldn't necessarily be something that you do just because you have to, right? It's it shouldn't come from a should necessarily this. And again, it will be a calling that God has for you. So you really got to discern there what that is for you. See? Um Now of course, after such an experience of feeling this immense love of God and it really stirs your heart and this happens and you don't know from which place it comes from, it might feel a little bit confusing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that your life is going to shift right there, right then, that everything is suddenly gonna change and that you're gonna change and that the way that you look is gonna change and the way that you go about life is gonna change and your behaviors are gonna change. It doesn't mean that that happens in a moment. This is a process. And so when you feel the love of God, if you don't feel like you want to use that word right now, it's still an immense love and you can't put your finger on where it comes from. Really? When you experience that, your life does not change necessarily immediately. It might change in your heart. But after that change happens, now comes the initiation. Now comes the hero's journey, where you then can begin to alter your life and make pivots in your life because you have experienced this eternal, unconditional love of God. And so, this is the kind of feeling that you then take with you, and you got to remind yourself of it and aim to remember it over and over and over again to stay in alignment with that truth and to shine that light in whatever you do. So, there's going to be a process after this love is experienced, and there's going to be a journey beyond this kind of experience of God. And you really want to go about life after that experience or experiences, because there's going to be different levels of experience to God. And these are not going to be necessarily planned. Um but once you really tap into that, you want people to say, what is different about that person? What is it about that person? There's something different to them. And personally, it's not because of my talents. It's not because of my treasures. It's not because of any of that at all. My light, it's not my light. It's a light beyond me that shines through me because of the joy that I have in hard circumstances, because of the peace that I have when things don't make sense, when things don't go my way. It's because of my self discipline to do the things that I do out of obedience to God because He's calling me to do it. This is how you know that someone's different, because of the experience they've had with God. And their life will look completely different. They might actually look different, but there's an energy that's different to them. There's a light that is different to them. There's a radiance that's different to them. There's the eyes literally look clear when you've had this immense humbleness, humble experience with God, and you can't unsee it once you see it. And you can't unsee it in yourself either after the experience. And I've been humbled several times over, but especially after the accident that I had, which really, really, really confronted me to the fact that I am a spirit in a human body, and that this human body can indeed fall, wilt and fall, but my spirit prevails. And the love of God, it's just been persistent and consistent throughout my life. And I can't look beyond that anymore, you know? And it's because of that that your life should absolutely look different. You might make new decisions and new choices. And so, of course, to the external world, they won't understand necessarily. So there should be something that would be different that makes others outside, even unbelievers in God and atheists and people in new age spirituality, and that was me absolutely before. It should make them question why they don't believe in God, because your joy can't be put into words, and it should shine beyond you and really have them question why they don't believe. Because here you are having joy in hard circumstances. Here you are having peace when things don't make sense. Here you are having self discipline to do the things out of obedience to Christ because He's calling you to do it. And so that is going to make people question, because you're not relying on your own self anymore only. You're relying on a power beyond. So that's what's so beautiful about it, right? So you want to cultivate this sense of light and thankfulness inside of you. And this is a choice that you get to do every single day. And I can promise you this, that this is a practice to keep going back and remembering the kind of love that you felt when you had encounters with God, but even staying open to new encounters because God is ever present, always there. And so it's us and our mind that's got to come still, and we got to be available to experience God. Because if we feel resistance to God, or if we are afraid of God, or if we don't understand, we won't be as available to experience Him. But the point of this live is your life should look different and should not look the same after your encounter with God. Things will change in your relationships, in your way of living, in the choices you make, in your behaviors, in your identity, and the way that you go about life, in the way that you look. Your energy will be different because you rely on a power greater than yourself, which we all do to some extent, but it's just that you acknowledge that and you express that, right? So your life should not look the same after your encounter with God. And so I encourage you to come in and cultivate your light and thankfulness inside of the garden community now, which I'm setting up. You can go to link in my bio or go to bloombeyond.com/waitlist. And there we can come together and really cultivate these changes and integrate the changes that we've experienced in our hearts, um, so that our life can begin looking different to what they used to. And so that you can really experience the miracle working power of God, so that you can make decisions beyond the rational mind and from a place of humble obedience to God. Sending you so much love, and I'll see you tomorrow.